We're
And
good.
we're live. I am back to have the original sentences I have because Deck and Dara have been stealing my sentences to say, and we're live. We have our first viewer. Please say hello in the chat to know who you are. We always love our first viewer. Welcome. We are back. We missed 1 week from the Tricolor Reds. And you see on the lineup, as usual, Khaled here from Wicklow talking to you all the way to Kerry. Deck is there with his Martial jersey. And then, no. And then we've got Dara in Cork. And as you can see, we sacked Nigel. Nigel is not there. He's sacked, you know.
Hey,
He
Norm.
didn't do well. Now we're kidding. Nigel will join us in a few minutes, hopefully. But we have John with us. John, welcome on board. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good tonight now, in fairness. Be quite honest, didn't think I'd ever be doing a podcast ever, but here I am,
Here,
showing my ugly mug to the world. So,
tell us quickly about yourself. Where are you sitting? Where are you talking to us from? And when did you start the love, the crazy love with United?
I suppose I'm in my kitchen at the minute, or my dressing room, I suppose, appropriately for this live feed.
I meant
In Cork
physically
as
in
well.
Ireland. Yeah, okay.
In Cork,
That's the thing.
as well. But thankfully, I'm a bit far away from Dara, so that's okay.
Okay, interesting.
My love for United, I suppose, I supported them really from when I was younger. I remember looking at a couple of games and seeing like Keane when he was still there. And I suppose Scholes, Giggs, watching a couple of those matches, and and when Howard was goalkeeper there as well, it was just hooked right away on watching United play, and it's been following them kind of really ever since. Thankfully, I've been able to go to a couple of United games with Dara. Thank you very much, Dara, for that opportunity as well to go over.
Great.
So, yeah.
Happy to have you with us, John. Very important question now to define the next 30 minutes with us in the interview. Do you think Martial should stay or go? Very important. Be careful of what you say.
Dara, don't influence this answer. I'm gonna give. I suppose. Look, from what I can say on it, is Martial. He was good at one time at the club, and he is still a good player to some effect. But maybe he doesn't blend into what Den Haag is trying to do now at United. So maybe I think he is probably better off to try and go somewhere else, possibly. I have no problem with him staying United, but maybe I think if he's to try anywhere else, he's probably better off trying elsewhere. Maybe I
Okay.
think.
Okay. Very respectful answer. No, it's like usually we just banter Marcel directly, but you okay. At least in the Tricolor Reds, we have something positive about Marcel. But listen, guys, let's get into it. Tough days, tough weeks from losing the derby, from losing to Newcastle, from losing yesterday in a very dramatic way. Deck, I'm starting with you. How did you live the past 3 games? A statistic from my side, it's Champions League only, but you can talk about any of whatever you want about the games and everything. But we conceded 11 goals in 4 games in the Champions League. I'll let you start from there.
Yeah, it's been brutal, to be honest. Not something we expected or hoped for at the start of the season. Last night's game kind of tipped it over the edge. We started so good. We were controlling the game up until Rashford got sent off. My opinion, shouldn't have been a red card, but I think that changed the whole pattern of the game after that then. And to lose 4-3 in those circumstances, I just thought a lot went against us with the referee, with VAR and stuff. Now, we do need to defend better as a team, but when you have a player sent off in those circumstances, it just changes the whole nature of the game, and I think it showed in the end when we're down to 10 men for so long that was going to have a negative effect on us. So I was gutted after starting so good and looking good. So it was just unfortunate that the result went against us, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a tough game, and we threw the advantage twice. And Daram, up to you with your favorite topic about VAR. How did you judge that impact with the VAR yesterday, and how was it on the game?
Well, I've always talked about the inconsistency of VAR, but at least we can say last night for better or for worse, it was consistent. Where it went wrong, you just don't know really, because VAR is such a sticky topic. I was even debating with, we can talk about the red card, we can talk about the initial penalty. As I said on social media myself, if it was going to be given against us, it was going to be given for us, and sure enough, it was in the penalty that we got. But VAR, man, it's just a sticky subject sometimes. Like I said, at least it was consistent this time out. But as I, as myself and yourself were talking last night about VAR, kind of, at least my initial plan would be to have the whole governing bodies between FIFA, UEFA come up with one set of rules and actually try and take the time to have referees be trained into those rules, because at least that way it's one set of rules. And I mentioned the point as well. We heard about, or the audio from the Liverpool and Tottenham game. VAR in itself had like 3 or 4 people officials over VAR. Like, you had your main official and you had like 2 or 3 assistant officials. Say, if you just stick it to one official, like they do, let's say you have your referee, the linesman, the fourth official, and your VAR, one singular VAR official, it might cut out some of the he said, she said kind of scenario. But the technology is there; it's there to stay. It's just down to how it's actually properly used, really. Like
Yeah.
last night in itself was a bit of a shambles, but it's Manchester United these days that you can't really take it away from that. Like,
Yeah, exactly. And as long as we're speaking to VAR, John, I'll start with a question with you about VAR now, and then you can give me your insights about the game. I have here a statistic from the net goal score, goals disallowed from the VAR. So Crystal Palace and Sheffield United each had one goal disallowed this season. Spurs have two, Wolves have two, and then Man United have five. So -5 goals that we scored, and then they weren't counted in the VAR. How do you see the VAR impact yesterday with the red card, and then with the penalty that we scored, and then with everything in turning over that game that we threw completely? John, up to you.
I think the same. I think there was a dramatic effect in the game. Really, the minute that it was that the decision was given based off of the VAR review. Um, I mean, again, like as I think as Dar was even saying there, I think with the VAR itself as well needs to it needs to be brought in kind of under one guide set of guidelines as such. Like actually even going from not even just yesterday's game where there was that red card was hugely instrumental to how the game turned out afterwards, especially when we were fighting back with 10 men. But I was actually even looking at the Chelsea's game there actually the other evening, and even looking at how it took nearly 15 minutes to look at the VAR, and then it came to a decision again of a red card as well in that. I actually think myself and Darth had chatted about this a few times, and
easily,
one thing I actually said to Dara was this is like the one thing that you need to have is two linesmen really either side, because need to have two linesmen, you need to have two sets of officials and everything, especially when you're coming into computerizing the game. With everything else, it's very difficult to sometimes call it fairly. There have been some games where it has been called fairly, but for the most part, it's been strewn in controversy. That's kind of what I think. I think it needs to be tied up a bit more, basically.
Okay, okay. Before we'll get later to the Luton game, and Aaron is there. Hello, Aaron, and all to Kildare supporters, our friends in Kildare group. And Dek, I'm back to you. So, how mentally can we can I think not formed correctly? How bad can we be mentally last night to throw away that 2-0 and then that 3-2? What happened? Okay, red card excluded. Okay, red card or not red card, let's talk about it. I somehow feel it is a red card. It can be given, but in a biased way, of course, I'll say it's not. But Deck, how bad can we be mentally just to throw away that? What went wrong? How did this happen in your opinion? on the pitch? What's wrong, really?
I think it's been the story of our season. The players are too inconsistent. As a team, you have to be playing together as a team. Of course, they're going to feel down after a result like that. I mean, they're only human, but they're going to have to remember that they're playing for Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in the world. So they're going to have to do everything they can to put in a performance against Luton. They don't have a choice. We're not a club where they can, wallow in self-doubt or anything. They have to put in a performance or else they're gone. Like us as supporters, we're down after the last few matches, but we're still turning up, shouting, singing for the team. So they have to realise that. That banner that was in Old Trafford, "Play as if you mean it." I mean, I think that says everything about
Fulham,
about what supporters want to see their team doing on the pitch. So that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to suck it up now and realise that they're at one of the biggest clubs in the world and their performances haven't been good enough this season. And I think if they're not good enough, move them on.
Move them on. I think yesterday I was just saying with Dara, we were speaking about it, and there are loads of players that have to go. And here I'll just show Aaron's comment here. Aaron says there's no consistency with VAR. You can't have one rule in the Premier League over different leagues. Dara is right. It has to be the same across the board, and which is totally right. Like, obviously, I did not see what happened to Liverpool, but I saw it on my phone today. It was 3-3, then it was 3-2, and I didn't know what's happening. There was no notification about VAR. I don't know how bad it is, but Deck, we were chatting, and you spoke about the red card with the Liverpool, and you spoke about the goal. I don't know. It's a big mess with the VAR, and I believe, as yesterday, Dara and I was chatting, and I believe it's here to stay, but we have to get used to it, and it has to get better also. But
Easily.
let's see how it moves on. And Dara, I'm back to here. We were speaking about players that will go on this week. We've seen an update, especially from Fabrizio Romano, that Sancho is out of the WhatsApp group. So meaning, I don't think there's still a chance. Now it's like 100% confirmed that Sancho will be back. He's gone out of the WhatsApp group. If you had a magic way to shake things off, who would you send off that team? Who's off? Apart from Martial, obviously he's driving the
I was
bus.
going to say, I'll make Deck happy straight away and just say Martial. But no, you see, Maguire would have been the first player on my list at the start of the season.
No. Okay, I agree.
His redemption arc is too good now. He's after coming a long way and he earned his flowers. I can't say anything much about him. Players like, as we mentioned last night ourselves, Varane. It's just his attitude to the way he came on for Johnny Evans' injury. It just seems very lazy, like skills. But I was even quoted to say last night, it was a very Martial-esque manner because he was very slumped. He didn't look like he wanted to be there. That kind of scenario. So Varane, for as great as he is now, there has to have been something in the fallout of the last few games that he's acting this way, because his attitude up until now has been professional, outstanding. So something has to be going on behind the scenes. I'm looking at across the board, and I'm there like, because we were even saying last night as well, kind of in relation to a right back scenario with Dalot and Wan-Bissaka, two stellar right backs. Okay, fair enough. Dalot more attacking minded, but Wan-Bissaka himself is after coming more into the attacking role now himself. So it's kind of a case of, in the summer, you imagine Ten Hag going to want to bring in someone that he wants, but then you have to think the two boys, Dalot and Wan-Bissaka, have performed to such a standard. Who's going to be the one considered to be the backup right back then? Because we all know. No, I'm going to throw a name here that has been thrown around, but I don't know if he actually one of Ten Hag's men or not. Denzel Dumfries from Inter Milan. His name's been thrown around a lot, but I just don't know, is he that kind of player for Ten Hag? Well, I'll just use him as the example. We get Dumfries in the summer. Who's the backup right back? Because I would say Dalot on the grounds that he covers both flanks, but Wan-Bissaka has that ability that makes you know that he wants to still be there. So it's tough to tell. Even in the midfield, we're overloaded in midfield now. Where Eriksen, I would have said last year, immediate starter. This season, he's a super sub because he breaks lines on a centre back that's fatigued from playing a fully 85 minutes at that point. He'll break the line. He'll only offer that though in the last 9 minutes of the game. If he's starting, he's not going to be able to offer that. And even in the forward line, the only one really that off the top of my head, bar Sancho, that you can really get rid of is Martial, and that's just even to keep Deck happy.
Yeah, I would agree. And John, I'm back to here just deeply on the Champions League. So I'm looking at the ranking here. So we've got Bayern, which is through after 4 games, 12 points, 3 wins, obviously. Copenhagen at 4, which is in the second place, -2 in goal difference. Galatasaray in third place with 4 points, -2. And we are at the last spot with 3 points with -2. We play Galatasaray in Turkey on November 29th. What chances do you see for us in finishing second and going through to this round of 16 of the Champions League?
I suppose looking at, the on-off form United have been in, and even looking at last night, where, in fairness, they were able to score goals, they were able to bring some of the game, but at the same time, when United play like that, they've been able to shut off any comeback from opponents in the past, and just we don't have that yet in whatever team Ten Hag is trying to form, the players he's trying to find as his solidified 11. So I think at the minute, going off of last night's game, though it ended up as 4-3, which is, a good result for us in getting the goals that we had, and to take, not even focus on the loss here for a second, but there's still something amiss in the background. So I think whatever's happening in the background, has got to be ironed out quickly, if possible, before the Galatasaray game. It's hard to call, because the minute you count United out of the game, they could go in and turn it around. But then the minute you think that they're going to do it, is also when they could fall apart. And I'm going to be quite honest, I don't know how to call it. I think I'm obviously going to stick to the guns and the team that I support, and say that they'll come out and maybe get win 2-0 or 2-1, keep it nice and simple like that, maybe. But I just think it's very hard to call at the minute. The form is very fluctuant in how they're performing. There's nothing stable as of yet in the last couple of games.
Yeah. There's nothing stable in the last couple of games, and I would say even the starting 11 is not the same. Okay, it's still part of football. We can debate that. You can't start with the same 11, of course. And injuries played a huge part in changing this and shaking things off. Casemiro's not there also just after the international break. So it makes me really doubting what will happen. I see that Galatasaray game personally really crucial. There's no chance. You cannot afford a loss anymore. You cannot afford even a draw. You have to go there and win. There's nothing else that can be done in that game. And then even if we win, and hopefully we win, let's touch the wood here, we still have Bayern coming to us, That's another level. Now, I believe Bayern will do us a favor and they will beat FC Copenhagen. And then we have to do our job, and it's on us in order to beat Galatasaray and move forward, And life goes on. Champions League is gone. We're back to the Premier League this Saturday or Sunday, is it we're playing?
Saturday, 3 o'clock, yeah.
Saturday, 3 o'clock, we play in Old Trafford. We play Luton, which I would say supposed to be not a very hard game, to be fair. I mean, if I'll look at the stats now with Luton as I ask, but they come back to you. Nothing else but a win for Luton. But how do you see it? How do you see the bounce back? Do you see that? Because when we watched the Fulham game after what happened to us against Newcastle and Man City, we saw wow, this is United. I want to see aggressive going forward. It didn't go well until the last minute till we scored. But what do you see in the Luton game, and how will we react to Tech?
Well, I hope we're going to react positively. I don't think it'll be that easy a game, because everyone that's come to Old Trafford this season has found out that if they put pressure on our defence, they can reap the rewards. Teams aren't afraid of us at Old Trafford anymore. We need to get back to Old Trafford being a fortress where teams are already beaten by the time their team bus arrives at the stadium. That's not there at the moment. I'm hoping United will bounce back with a win and 3 points, because that's what we need. We can't take too many more defeats in the league or anywhere else, because morale is at an all-time low. So I'm hoping for a good performance from the lads. I don't know what team Ten Hag's going to start with. It's near impossible to predict. But hopefully, whatever 11 he puts on, they put in a decent performance for us as fans of the club.
Yes, and Dara, before I ask you the same question, I'm going to ask you a different question. Do you think it's time that the second goalkeeper, I forget his name, the Turkish guy, Abhay, I think,
Bayender, yes.
Bayer.
Yeah.
Do you think it's time to have his chance? Not just because it's not really well for Onana in some of the games, but Onana will go for the African Cup somewhere mid-January,
Cup of Nations, in
Cup
January,
of
yeah.
Nation, and most likely Cameroon is one of the favorites, so they will go. I expect Cameroon to be in semifinals, so they will go for the full month. So don't you think it's time for him? Because I watch it. If you have seen it, the Manchester United official podcast, I've seen the guy speak. His English is broken. He's trying to make it better. He's good. He's funny. A lot of energy. I haven't seen him play, only except for videos with Fenerbahce on YouTube. But do you think it's time that we can shake things off in the battles with the goalkeeper? Because you don't want to end up in a situation where you're in February or somewhere in January where you've got loads of games. Let's say there's no Champions League anyway, if we are through anyway. But do, do you think it's time that we can shake things off and try the second goalkeeper?
This is actually, it's obviously coming off the topic that we were talking about ourselves last night, about the idea of switching to Bayern, but it's a case of when do you pull the trigger, really, because Luton, I'll talk more about the actual game coming up now with Luton in a second, but I will say this much: Luton are a fighting team, so I don't know, is it the right moment? See, the problem is, the African Cup of Nations, I think is it mid-January, I believe it is.
Yeah.
So the only opportunity we'd ever get to see Bayern, if at all, before that, if we decide to pull the trigger on them, is if we decide to play against Luton, which I highly doubt, because Onana's after coming to this vein of form where, let's be honest, we conceded 4 goals last night, but I genuinely don't believe, maybe bar the last one, and that's even being nitpicky, bar that 4th goal, none of those goals were anything that he could have done about, where they were purely out of reach or something that he were simply out of his control. Bayern, again, I'm not going to sit here and say I know enough about him, because I don't. I just want to see what he's actually made of, because I want to see us actually having two relatively decent goalkeepers, with 2 goalkeepers we can trust, because, I mean, come on, we had David De Gea and the Argentinian number 1 Sergio Romero once upon a time.
Romero.
And
Yeah.
so there you go. We had 2 of the best goalkeepers in the world, and a lot of people would say because of how good Romero was, we actually had the 2 best goalkeepers in the world at one point, because Romero was of such high standard. But I think the only time, if at all, before Onana will actually go to the African Cup of Nations will be the FA Cup 3rd round, depending on who we get, of course, for the 3rd round, if he wants to even make that change. I think the problem with the secondary goalkeeper is Ten Hag will only use the secondary goalkeeper if at all possible. Of course, in this scenario, he will have to use him because Onana is going after the African Cup of Nations. But you look at the way he used Dubravka in the 6 months that he was here last year. He only used them in 1, 2 games, and even at that, it was a case that, okay, you proved you're not worthy of playing for the shirt, so you're just sticky on the bench, and that's why Dubravka has to leave back in January and go back to Newcastle. But I just want to see 2 relatively good goalkeepers, and that's why I want to see Bayern get his chance. It's just a matter of when. But on to the game against Luton, Dick, you were mentioning about you weren't sure as to who was going to be put in the starting lineup. I actually would have put the same, just going off the first half an hour alone last night and how productive we actually were in that first half an hour. If you play the same formation, same everything, you put Rashford on the right. Obviously, Evans is now injured. We don't know for how long. I would say with Varane's attitude, you put Lindelof in that starting lineup again. Again, kind of playing that Leach style that I was saying about playing the ball and playing the ball forward and actually spraying passes from deep. So it's a possibility. You'd actually stick with the same formation, same lineup as last night. if I was to be proper nitpicky over last night's results, the only change I would make, bar Varane, of course, now would probably start the regular for Dallo, but even at that, it's up in the air really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And John, I'm back to you. Luton 11 games in the Premier League, only one win, 3 draws, 7 losses, minus 11 as a goal difference. Are you biased to say it's an easy game, or maybe they will say United is shaky? They lost twice back to back in Old Trafford. They lost this week in Denmark, and it's our chance to write history. How do you see it?
I certainly think United are shaky at the minute. I mean, they've been shaky for a while, all season long, and across all competitions. It's hard to. I certainly think with the game against Luton that United will want to come back and show everybody else that there's still a force to be reckoned with, which has happened time and time again when there's been a very disheartening result from a game that they've gone in expecting big and never pulled it off. They've always come back and tried to bounce, but like I think, to be honest, I think the confidence is shaken with the United team. Luton, I think now if they play it right on Saturday, could will potentially be a force to be reckoned with. I think it's going to be interesting to look at the game in the first 15, 20 minutes, see what United do, because if they're not coming out guns blazing and at the same time, controlling the game, then I definitely think then that leaves the door open for Luton to get a nice result, which for them getting promoted to the Premier League and getting a win against United, when they're at one of their lowest in terms of confidence, would be something else. But in saying that, given what happened in the Champions League, I know United are going to want to come back fighting, and they'll try and make it a nice and simple game. Do nothing over the top, just play basic, simple football, which is something that they haven't really done a consistent amount of in the season across all competitions.
Great, great. I would just show Aaron's question here, and we'll go around the guys just to answer it. How do you see the rest of the season going? What would you be happy with? I feel if we hit form now for in time for a busy Christmas period, it could be possibly do a cup final, Europa Cup, meaning Europa League, maybe if we get knocked out, or and a top 5. Oof, I won't take top 5, to be fair. I'll start. I won't take top 5. I want top 4. I want to be back in the Champions League still next season. So important for attracting players, and you can't afford it. And I think the rest of the season is going to be really hard for us. The rest of the season is going to be ugly, I would say. It's the season
Definitely.
that we will transform in, because last season was okay. The first season with Ten Hag, one cup and back to Champions League and everything. But this is going to be really hard. Everyone was waiting for United now just to try to make their wins and everything. We said it last time in the podcast. What would be happy with? I said a cup, FA Cup or Carabao Cup, and now we lost one already, and the top 4. I still keep it. In case, and God hope not, we get knocked out of the Champions League to go to the Europa League, I'd see only less than a final would be a failure in the Europa League. Less than a final, and the final is in Dublin. You can't.
Rather for that squad.
Okay, then let's go to Europa League, Aviva Stadium. Then we're good. But that would be for me. And Dek, I know you said the same, but I'll let you go to answer Aaron's question.
Yeah, definitely. Like, obviously, we all want top 4. I don't know, is that a stretch at the moment? You never know. United can go on a run like no other team and possibly do it. If we do go into the Europa Cup, yeah, definitely. I think anything other than being in the final would be a failure, because we are a Champions League team. That's where we should be aiming to be all the time. As for when Bayern should play, put him in against Galatasaray. Leave him make a homecoming against a team that he's faced before. I'd love to see him.
That's actually a valid point, yeah.
I'd love to see him turn up and put in a performance to get us the win in Turkey. It's something we haven't done before. We're going to have to do it this time. So that's my take on that as well. I'd love to see him play in that game. Give him a chance.
All right. Mr. Short Answers, I'll go to you.
I'll try and keep it simple. Try. John knows too well I can, so you know you're screwed, lads. Don't mind your watch, Deck. But I still maintain the top four, but even to point out Aaron's comments, top five, someone told me before that I think top five or the fifth place now will actually go towards UEFA Champions League now rather than Europa League this year. So it's just the way that the English league have dominated in Europe so much over the last couple of years that I think they're the way the someone can explain it better than me now, but basically it's a case that the way Europe or English teams have dominated in Europe across Champions League, Europa Conference League, and Europa League, that the places are more efficient for the Champions League. Someone can explain it better than me, but I remember seeing something basically that allows top five to qualify for Champions League this year. I'm not too sure if it's confirmed or not, but at the same time, it's something that this isn't me saying aim for fifth and take it, but because at the end they were what seventh or eighth now at the moment, but we're 6 points off Arsenal. Yeah, we're eight. We're 6 points off Arsenal. Who would have thought, given how poor the team has been, given everything on and off the field, controversy-wise, that we're eight, but we're only 6 points off Arsenal, who they're saying are having one of their best seasons. It's crazy to think about in the context of it all, but maintain that top four. If we have to drop down to the Europa League, I'll agree with you. Take the final and run. But if we're to maintain the Champions League, I'll be surprised. Like, it's all down to a game of chance, really. We have to go and win against Galatasaray. We have to hope the results in the last week go our way. Of course, I'm going to be at the Bayern Munich game, so I'm hoping for a win, obviously. But at the same time, I'll be trying to keep a close eye on the phone if the Old Trafford Wi-Fi decides to work, and I can end up seeing how Galatasaray and Copenhagen are doing in that other game. So you never know.
Don't count on the Wi-Fi in Old Trafford. It's
it worked once for me. In all my time going last season, it worked once.
No, it's one of the things that you have to get rid of on the list along with Martial.
Blazers on top, of course.
Listen, lads, 31 minutes on the clock, or 32 minutes. It was a pleasure. I think we keep saying it. Let's wish for a happy episode, and then we do 2-3 sad episodes, and then we do one happy episode, and then we come back to the sad episode. So I'll just throw it again. Let's hope that next episode on Wednesday is the happy one after a win and a good performance this weekend. And hopefully we at least score more goals. We don't do errors in the defense. Let's get that spirit back in the team. And hopefully talk to you next week also again to discuss this. And John, it was a pleasure to have you.
And thanks very much for having me on, guys.
Thank Nigel. He's sacked, done. We'll switch.
And one last positive. Make sure Martial doesn't get on the pitch.
His performances keep him off it.
To be fair, when I saw him on the pitch was it Newcastle that he started? And I was like,
Newcastle,
Newcastle. And you can see we got 3-0 down, If you're starting a game. I remember something that, who was it? I forgot who said it when we lost that famous game in the Anfield last season. I don't want to say the score again. Someone said, you cannot go to Anfield and play with a striker who wasn't Burley. Although I loved Weghorst as a player, as a striker, never fall in love with a lone striker. But okay, true, it hurts. You can Henrik Larsson, that's exactly. So you cannot go to Anfield and play with striker came from Burnley, just like you cannot play in Old Trafford and Champions League and everything and play with that number 9. It's just dead, I'd say it again. Deck, he always says it. He's 50 and he can play more. Apologies, I said your age, Deck, in front of all Ireland. We've got 2 viewers.
That's okay. I still would put in a better performance than him anyway.
I would be singing for Deck from the Stratford end just to score and get Martial out,
I'll be the way and booing him.
Let's see. Lads, it was great to have you. Let's hope for a positive episode next week, and let's hopefully we get to win against Luton, and talk to you next week.
Here's open. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. See you, guys. Thanks.